we're going to walk through assignment 6. The first part is optional. We go through and create this user interface. In the face-to-face version of this class, we actually do this all in class and walk the students through. For the online version, it's optional, but I think it's a good learning exercise to do this. So we're going to create this user interface in this project. But first we're going to talk about this project, the code itself, because you're going to have to be doing some changes to this. So this is the project from the textbook, chapter 4. And it's broken into service and domains. And again, we're working with accounts here. So we have an account base, which is just a simple account which has a balance and reward points. You can add, there's an add transaction and calculate reward points. The calculate reward points isn't implemented right now. It's empty at this point because it's implemented in the child classes. So we have this account base, and then in that we have 3 different types of accounts: a gold account, a platinum account, and a silver account. Each one of these calculates reward points differently and sets that up. So there's a different way of doing this for each one. So we have inheritance here with the parent class and 3 child classes. We also have a simple factory method. In account base, there's a create account method, and we specify an account type, and it returns one of those accounts for us. So it'll return either an account, a silver account, a gold account, or a platinum account. So that's set up here. There's also just a account types enum in a separate file here. So that's the different accounts, and then we have a service account services here that we can use. We can create an account, get an account balance, get reward points, do a deposit or withdrawal. Right now, withdrawal isn't implemented. You'll have to implement that as part of this assignment. And to find an account, given an account name, we'll find that account. And so we're going to be using up a dictionary of accounts. This is like an array of accounts, but where like an array would index things by numbers, you could say account 4 or account sub 8. The dictionary indexes things by some key. So we specify some name here, the name on the account, and then it'll get the account. So it stores things based on this key. So we do have a find account method that just uses that dictionary and finds, checks if the key exists, and then if so, returns the account with that. And you can see, again, similar to an array, the brackets with the account name here goes out and grabs the account that's stored in the dictionary with that name. Finally, we have an interface, the account services, and an iAccount services interface, which is just an interface defining these main methods here. Okay, but there's in the book they don't have any user interface or any program that uses this. They just go through it as an example. So we're just going to add a simple user interface to this project. So we're going to add a new project to this. And we'll add a Windows Forms project so we can create a simple user interface. So we're going to go under C#, Windows, and do a Windows Forms application. We'll just give it a name like Accounts Forms. Create that. It'll create a separate project over here for Account Forms, and let us work with that. And by default, it creates a little program that has the main, and then it starts up a form 1's here, we'll just leave it called form 1 for our work, and we're going to just set up this form. And what we want it to do is we'll want a text box for the account name and add the account, and this is a list box here, and then these are just text boxes, and these are buttons. So we'll set up something like that first. Let's set up this first setup over here on the left. So if we click on that form, we should see the toolbox show up here. If it doesn't, you may have closed it, and then I'll get that to show up here. So here's our toolbox. Okay, and then under common controls, we're going to again drag a couple text boxes here for the account number. We're going to put a label above it. I'm going to put a label at the very top of this. And then we're going to have a list box down here and a label for that. So we've got our labels and a text box. We need the button and a label and the text box there. So let's add our other add account button here. So now with all of these, we want to work on the properties which are over here and specify the properties. Most of these will have a text property which will display what text is in them. Recently, Wells Fargo's been in the news for adding accounts incorrectly, creating accounts for people, so I'm just spoofing that and creating a app that lets you add accounts easily. So since that's the heading, I'm just going to kick up the font size of that a little bit more. Okay. So we're going to use this. We're going to set up the new account and have a text box and add account and current accounts. So this label will just say new accounts. This button will be the add account button. So again, I'm initially just changing the text properties. Now, we're going to want to change the name of some of these objects, like text fields and buttons and list boxes, because we'll use those in code. So I'm going to click on those and go up and choose find their names. I'm used to using the syntax of like txt new account for the new account text box, and the button btn add account, and this list box. Then I guess I'll leave that as list box for now. Okay, now if I double click on any of these objects, it'll create code for that. So I'm going to double click on the button, create codes for that to add the button information here. Let's look at what we have to do there. So when I click on the add account button, I want to grab the account name here and add it to the list box down there. So let's do that. So I'm going to declare a string variable account name to grab the account name, and then I'm going to go out to txt new account dot text is the text field there. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so I've got this, not a method here, it's just txt text. So I get that, get the account name from the text box that's out there. Now I want to store that in my list box. List box accounts these are stored in a thing called the items. So I'm going to go items add, and then I'm going to add the account name to that. Okay, so I'm grabbing the text from the account name field, txt account, and then I'm adding it to the list box. So if I run this, it should do some basics. Okay, so I've tried to run this and it gives me this error. The problem is that I've added this object, but it doesn't know what program, what project to run. So I'm going to make sure I click on my accounts form here and go up to project and set the default project for that. Set as startup project. So it starts this project and finds the main there. Okay. So here's my form. I can add an account. I can add another one. And I can click on them. This is the list box down here. So we got started now. But this is just using this interface. It actually isn't creating actual accounts for these. So I want to be able to use my account services here to do that. So I can create an account services object. So up here, I'm going to need to get at account services. So I'm going to go account services. And create a new account services. Now, it's not finding these, and so one of the problems is that although I created this new form, it doesn't know where to find them. Here, but I try to get there. Okay, it doesn't know. Sorry. Okay, it doesn't know that I'm using these other projects in this project. So to make sure I go into references here and add a reference. So I want to go down to projects and I'm going to use both the service and the domain projects. So I want to make sure those are both checked here and hit OK. So now I've referenced them. In my references, it should say, besides all this stuff, it should say domain and services. So now in my form, I should be able to declare an account services object and use that. So now I need to import my usings here. So now it should say that I can put use services up here, and it'll add that up above. So using services is defined up here. This one I'm just not spelling it right. So now I've got my account service and I can use that down here. Now in a real world application, I've kind of simplified things a little bit. I should be probably using the user interface here. I should be creating an iAccount services interface object. So I should be making this one of these and using it to that interface. But to keep things a little simpler here, we'll just go right to the account area. Okay, so now either way, the rest of the code would be the same depending on how I declared that. Okay, now I want to use my account services. Account service dot add account. So I did the wrong one. That one. Dot. And now I have my options of what I can do. I can create an account, and I want to create an account. And it just needs an account name and account type. So I'm going to give it the account name, which I have here. And for now, we're going to just make all accounts silver accounts. Eventually, in our interface, we'd have some checkboxes to select the different account types, but for now, it's just going to want to do that. Now, the silver accounts are defined, the type R accounts are defined in domain here under account types. But I'm not using domain yet, so I'm going to make sure I say using domain up here also. Now, since I'm doing that, I should be able to go down here and say account types dot silver. Okay, so this is going to actually create use account services to create an account. And I'm going to add it to list box and then actually create the account so I can use that. So, okay, so if we go back to the assignment here, we've created this left part of the user interface. We've defined the user interface. We get the add account button to add the accounts to account services and displayed in the list box. Now we want to do this next part. Clicking on account should display its balance over here. So let's create this. So we've got three text boxes, a couple labels, and a couple buttons. Let's set that up in our interface here. I'm going to make the interface a little bigger and then drag my text boxes over here. And some labels. I do have to watch if I double click on one of these by accident, it'll create a method for that. And sometimes you want to just always say, oh, I don't need that method. I just accidentally clicked on it. You want to delete that method. It's almost better initially to leave that there. If you delete that method, you'll get a compile error now when you try to run this or use this. The problem is that there's some code. Actually, that one did work. But usually you get an error message, especially when you double click on some things. Here we go. Because behind the code here, behind this form, there's some code that defines the form behind this. And in that, so if we see this form designer.cs, there's reference to that click event. So unless you know enough to be able to go in there and delete that, if you double click on a form object and it creates a method for it, I would just leave that method there for now. Okay, so let's change these text properties, balance, and then we'll have a deposit amount. Oops, actually I wanted these to be buttons, not labels. Okay, and I want to do a deposit and a withdrawal. Okay, I'm going to make sure I label these buttons and my text boxes. Okay, and then our text boxes we want to label also. So I'll label all those. I mean, not label, change the names on them. So. Okay, so now we have all of our buttons and text boxes created here. So our next step, when we click on a list account over here, we want to display the balance over here. So let's look at that. So we're going to double click on our list box so we can get at the code for that. The code behind the list box is when when the selected index is changed. So now we're going to grab the string for the account that's out there, and then we're going to try to get the account uh, that's associated with that account. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. I'm going out, I'm declaring a string called account name. I'm going out to my list box, getting selected item, and converting that to a string. You think it would be a string already, but it tends to be an object, so I have to get the string, which should get the text that's stored there. So that'll give me the account name from the list box. And now I'm going to go out. I have my account services object. Remember I created that before up here. I'm going to use that again, account services, and one of the options is get account balances. I'm going to pass the account name there. It'll go look it up in that dictionary and find it. So it'll return the account balance as a decimal. And finally, I want to display that here in the balances area. So I'm going to say balances.toString. So it'll convert it to a string and save that into my txt balance to text field out there. So that should set up the display of the balances. So if I add an account here and click on it, it should say 0 up here. And if I had multiple accounts, I can click between, and right now they're all 0. So we have to get the deposit button working next, so we can do that. So let's go do the deposit button here. Open up my deposit button, and we'll do the code for that. Okay, so to do the deposit, we've got to get the amount in this deposit thing, and also the account name, and send those both to our account procedure. If you remember our methods here in our services, we have a create account, get account balances, get reward points. There's a deposit method. We specify the account name and the amount. So we have to get both of those in our form and send those here. So let's get the account, the amount we want to add to this account first. So we're going to declare a decimal amount, and we're going to use the text box txt deposit amount dot text. Now there's a problem with that because that's a text field, a string, and this is a decimal. So we're going to have to parse that, convert that into a decimal. We can use the decimal type to do that. Decimal dot parse to convert that string into a decimal. So okay, so that'll convert this string to a decimal. We also have to make sure we get the account name, and just like above here where we grabbed it from the list box, we can do that again. So I'm going to copy that code here, grab the account name here, and put it here. And then we're going to use our account services object, and we're going to do a deposit, and we're going to specify account name and an amount. So the account name is account name, and the amount is our amount variable. So we're using the account name variable and the amount variable that we've grabbed from the forms here, and we're passing that to our account services as a deposit here. So this should do the deposit. The last thing we probably want to do is update the balance. So we can do that. Up here before we actually did this txt balance.text, and we set that equal to balance, and we actually got the balance in a separate thing. We can actually do that all in one line here if we want to kind of streamline things. We can just say account services dot get account balance dot toString. Oops, we want to get account balance and specify the account name, and then do a toString. So we're basically combining what we did up here in 2 lines into 1 line here to grab the accounts. So now if we run this, we should be able to add deposits to accounts. So we have to create a couple accounts. Now, we're simplifying this where we don't have a database. We should have a database storing all these account services. Instead, we're just using this dictionary to save them. So this every time we run this, we have to create these accounts. So that's not the best interface. But now it just illustrates this point. Some of the examples from this text, I think. So now we can have checking and savings. They can have different amounts, accounts, and balances. We can do deposits into each one there. Okay, but now there are still a number of errors. Withdrawals not working. If you do things like run this and right away um, you you try to deposit and you haven't selected an account, you'll get an error here. So there's a number of errors and problems with this. So we're going to look at that as our part of our assignment now. So we've done, I think, this now. This withdrawal button we'll be doing next phase. So your job is to finish up, do the withdrawal button, get that working, and you'll use test-driven design to do that. If so, we've got a number of tests that are running on this. Let me close some of these forms and stop this. So within service, next to services, there's a service unit tests with some unit tests there, and same with domain. There's domain unit tests with some tests, some service, some tests running there. So if we go to test, run all the tests, some of the tests are going to fail. The withdrawal tests won't work. And so your job is to fix this up so that these tests pass here. So here we're trying to create we create an account service and create a deposit. We do a withdrawal and check if it works and it doesn't work because again, a withdrawal isn't implemented. So your job is to look at how we did implemented how we implemented deposits and implement withdrawals similarly. Now inside the domain you have a couple options with withdrawals. There is a add transaction. You specify amount, you can add a transaction. You could actually specify a negative amount and to do this, so you could do that. That's a simple way. One of the problems with that is it does things to reward points. So if you want, you can also add a method in here called subtract transaction or delete transaction or something like that to this account and set that up. So that's up to you how you want to handle that. But you want to get the withdrawals working for the tests, and then you want to, once you get the test to pass, you want to get the withdrawal button to work. So if the tests are working, you should be able to then code the withdrawal button. So those are your two assignments, or the assignment for those two tasks.